Rain may glisten, but still I listen for hours and hours. I'm just a kid again, doing what I did again, singing this song. When the red, red robin comes, bob, bob, bobbing. When the red, red robin comes, bob, bob, bobbing. When the red, red robin comes, bob, bob, bobbing along.
Hello and welcome to this week's Red Robin podcast, which is powered by 𝗓𝓐𝑐𝑡𝑦 Chartered Accountants and Budget Ties Auto Centre. I'm Chris Johnson, and this week I'm delighted to be joined by 𝗂𝐿𝐼 𝗖𝐿𝐼 from 𝗂𝐻𝐼𝐿𝐼 and Dan Crowther from Hull Kingston Rovers, Red and White Dynamite. We also have Castle for Tigers fan Ray Dalton joining us to help preview this Friday's Challenge Cup quarter-final home fixture. But before any of that, we'll discuss our scintillating Super League Round 7 victory over the Warrington Wolves and, of course, give you our views on the brand-new Rovers Fed shirt. Boys, how we doing? Great to have you on the podcast again.
Great after the other night. Bloody hell. I mean, who would have expected that? I know we'll get onto it, but yeah, what a way to start the month, Chris.
Yeah, it was a fantastic evening, wasn't it, Mike? We're going to talk about the performance very soon. I saw you on the pitch. I didn't know if you was a streaker at one point, but I saw you out there, and it was a great night, not just on the pitch, but off it as well.
Absolutely. It was, you think of these nights, and sometimes they can be quite season-defining. You think back to the Wigan victory in 2021 at Craven Park, where that really was an electric night, and I feel like Friday against Warrington definitely gave me those kind of vibes.
Yeah, definitely. We've already got a couple of questions coming in. So thanks to Alfie. He's put who starts in the halves in your opinion, lads, Abdul, Lewis or Milnes. We're going to come on to that because Milnes obviously put in a very good showing. We've got squad news to come. Abdul looks like he's going to be fit and ready to play. So there's definitely a conundrum there for Tony Smith to sort. Michael Morton, thanks for sending us a message. Good evening. Of course, if you are watching tonight, please comment, give us your views and opinions. There's lots to go at this in this week's podcast, obviously with our victory over Warrington, our upcoming quarter-final tie, and of course our brand new shirt. But we're going to kick off with the news that broke earlier this morning, and that is Brad Takairangi has been retained by the club after being sentenced for pleading guilty to a number of serious driving offences. Now, before I bring Dan and Mike in, I'll just read out the statement what the club put out just as that news broke. It says that Hull KR can confirm Hull Crown Court today sentenced Brad Takairangi to a 12-month prison sentence, suspended for 2 years and 300 hours community service for serious driving offences. The club have also undertaken and concluded an internal disciplinary procedure, and Brad is now available for selection if and when required. The club are satisfied that Brad understands the gravity of this one-off incident and its potential consequences on an otherwise exemplary record, that he is genuinely remorseful and is keen to make reparation through his work in the community. The club do not condone antisocial behaviour of any kind, and the steps taken by the court and club today reflect that. Neither the club or player will comment further on the matter. Dan, I'll come first to you. Have the club done the right thing by sticking by Brad Takairangi?
I think so, yeah. I don't think they had too much of a choice in a way from the point of view of playing-wise, because he's one of our top earners and one of our better players. I mean, when you think about it, Chris, how many clubs in Super League would dispense with one of their star players just like that? You know, I think he needs a second chance, definitely. Although the action was reckless, needless to say.
Yeah, and without going into the details of what happened, obviously, if you go on the Red Robin podcast Twitter timeline, you can see exactly what he's been charged with, and it's in the Hull Daily Mail. It's all there for people to see. Of course, it's pretty unforgivable what he's done, isn't it? From a point of view of somebody going out and carrying out them actions. Obviously, he's a Hull Kingston Rovers player. My view is that playing for Hull Kingston Rovers is an honour, it's a privilege, and your behaviour on and off the pitch should reflect that. And through Mike's work with the Heritage Trust, you'll see how many heritage numbers have been given out, and there's not that many people who have been given the opportunity to represent this great club. And these kind of actions obviously bring it all into disrepute, especially when the club have worked so hard off the field to raise the profile, raise the image, raise standards, and also the work Tony Smith's done on the pitch. So for me, it just puts a bit of a cloud over everything that's happening, and it's not something that the club have brought on. I understand that they've got a duty of care to the player, to the individual, and obviously Brad Takairangi has shown great remorse for what he's done. It looks like it's a one-off and it's not a pattern of behaviour. That said, I'm still in two minds about what the appropriate course of action should have been, and I'm not sure. I think everyone deserves a second chance, without doubt. You know, we've all made mistakes, we've all done things that we regret. Whether Hull Kingston Rovers have to give him that second chance, and whether that second chance should be granted by another club, you know, that's up for debate. But Mikey, obviously, social media's been red hot with people's opinions, and you know, I don't think anyone's got necessarily a wrong opinion on it, because it's such a serious offence, and you know, there's been precedents set by other clubs where they've let players go, but there's also been cases where players have been kept on and they've been given that chance to prove their worth. If we take away the fact that he's probably a player not performing to his best, Mikey, but take that out of the equation, you know, the club have got to be strong in this, haven't they? And I'm sure they're going to be supporting him off the field, but you know, through his community work, he's going to have to do now as part of community service. There's going to be an opportunity for redemption, isn't there? And it's going to be interesting to see how fans take to him on the back of this now.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to understand that he is a human being and that he's made a mistake, and it's a pretty big mistake to make. You know, you can't take that for granted at all. But the club have made a decision. There's been a case that have made a decision, and I think we just need to accept it, move on, and just hope that he's learned his lesson. Yeah.
On current form, Mikey, does he get back into the team for you?
No, not at all. Not at all. And I'm basing that purely on form, because the way that we've looked with Jimmy Kinehorst and Sam Wood on that side, I don't see him getting in for the next couple of games. And if he does, I think it would need to be because of an injury, because the way that those two have played, you know, the last two games we've actually switched. Sam Wood's played in the centres, hasn't he? And Jimmy's played on the wing. And they just seem to have a little bit of a bond and a relationship on the field there, which was really refreshing to see.
Yeah, and Dan, many people have commented that, you know, if he'd been a player performing at the top of his game, it'd have been an easy decision for the club to make to retain him. Obviously, he has struggled for form at the club, and I think when people have been saying stuff like we should have got rid of him, etc., they've been basing that on how he's been performing. But for me, performances go out the window when a decision like this has to be made, because it's got to be made in the best interest of the club. But he's being kept on. He's going to play. He's going to put a whole lot of pressure on himself now, isn't he? Because it's going to be very interesting to see what the reception will be like for him when he does enter the pitch. And obviously, he's not been named in the squad for the Castleford game this week. You know, we've got a big game coming up next week on Good Friday, which, you know, it's like maybe, you know, chucking a lamb to the slaughter a little bit. But he could be featuring that in that team. How do you think fans will react to him?
I think, well, it's a divisive subject, because there's some people in our supporter base that have probably knew somebody or they've been a victim in some case of drunk driving. So they feel personally afflicted by it, and rightfully so. And then there's people in the fan base that haven't, who are a little bit more generous and think, oh, well, he's a good player, you know, keep him in, that kind of thing. So it's always going to be touchy. But when he comes back, if he has a stinker of a game, it's not going to go too well, is it? Because then people are going to be saying, oh, well, you know, they should have got rid of him. You know, I told you so, that kind of thing. There's all that. And he's just got to come back, and if he can, have a stoma and really shut people up, you know, and it'll help ease the issue a little bit as well. When someone's playing well, people tend to forget these matters, rightly or wrongly. Just on the word on Jimmy Kinehorst. So I was doing some research, and it was Salford, Catalans, Liam Warrington that we played when Takarangi had his issue. So yeah, the defence in those games more or less tightened up, didn't it? You know, it's quite the coincidence. But I don't think we can pin it all on that, but it's definitely food for thought. But on Takarangi coming back, I think with the tight schedule that we've got coming up, he's going to be very useful to us, because although I think he's been training, hasn't he? Or has he just returned to training? Which one was it? I think he got stood down, didn't he?
Yeah, he's been away from the squad. Whether he's been training on his own, And I think now this is being lifted, he'll probably be straight back into first team training.
So he's a fresh body, and they're going to desperately need that, especially when they play OFC and then Toulouse. It's going to be really important that they have somebody like that. And when you've got a seasoned NRL centre to come back, it's a real boost. So, I think he's going to be useful in the next coming weeks.
Yeah, Craig Broadley, thanks for joining us. He said, do you think he has struggled for form with this hanging over his head? And do you think that he might feel a weight lifted and hopefully get back to his best in the not too distant future? There's no doubt, obviously, it'll be preying on his mind. It'll be preying on anybody's mind when you're potentially being, sent to jail. It's a huge thing huge burden to carry. And, if Tony Smith would have kept him playing, wouldn't he? It was only, seemed to be, other people in the club who actually then intervened to step Brad Takairangi down. But what I'd say about Craig's point about back to his best, I don't think we've seen that yet, have we, Mikey? And we've seen glimpses in games where he can produce magic. We've seen at the start of the season, he seemed to be suffering from, a bit of loss of form. Him and Sam Wood didn't quite to get that partnership working. So what his best is, Mikey, I'm not quite sure yet, but we are all desperate to see that. And to win fans over, there's no better way but doing that by putting in fantastic performances, is there?
Yeah, that's got to be his aim. For us to be able to see his best rugby. I think we've seen little pockets of magic, referring to the try against Salford, Craven Park last year. A really good kick and chase, chasing his own kick. He's had a couple of tries this year, I think, already as well. So we've seen little bits of what he can deliver, and it's just about now trying to find that form within him. Yes, the incident that's gone on and all that could have been playing on his mind, but it's a valid point to sort of say we probably haven't seen his best. I think as rugby league players in this country, we look at the 5, 6, 7 quota players that we have in each team, and we look at those players and expect them to be sort of standing up and delivering a little bit more when it comes in terms of performances. But what he hasn't been delivering has allowed somebody like Jimmy Kinehorst, who has worked his backside off through a very difficult 2021 season, and somehow from being almost pointed the direction to the door, has managed to turn his career around at this club and become a very firm fan favourite in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, and what we've seen in professional sport, it's not a very forgiving arena, is it? And there is a huge groundswell of opinion amongst the Rovers support that he should be nowhere near the club now. And it'll only take a few poor performances from him to further dissenting voices in the crowd to get louder and probably more and more. And it's going to be interesting to see what does happen on Good Friday, whether he's named in the squad, because obviously he's got to earn his right back at the club, but he's got to earn his way, his place back into the team. And like we've already mentioned, Jimmy Kinehorst has come in. We've seen Sam Wood shift to centre. Sam Wood looks a lot more composed, a lot more comfortable playing at centre. Jimmy Kinehorst, is he the long-term solution? I don't know. You've got Ethan Ryan, who definitely seems out of favour at the moment. And, of course, you've got Ben Crooks, who'll be chomping at the bit to get his place back into the team. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Brad Takairangi is going to walk back into that team. But you've got to imagine that if Rovers have gone out on a limb to keep him and they're going to retain his services, and no doubt he is one of our top earners, Tony Smith won't have any qualms about putting him back into that side, and then you're going to start seeing players shift around. So it is bubbling along, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Can you imagine, Dan, a Brad Takairangi match winner in the derby? I think that'd probably win a few people over, wouldn't it?
It would. I mean, according to Phil Clark, Brad Takairangi is a Man of Steel contender, isn't he? So who knows?
Yeah.
We could be surprised.
Phil Clark's got a lot of interesting opinions, hasn't he?
Do you know what, though, Chris? It said a lot about how divisive this is when Rovers supporters actually turned up to the court hearing today, I believe, because there was a report of Takarangi shaking hands with them, wasn't there? So they're going to be divided. And I don't think we've actually seen any signs of anyone turning on him at the grounds, have we? Not that I can recall or heard anywhere.
No, I think generally, I mean, obviously, we've not played yet since all this is broken. It's going to be interesting to see what the reaction is, isn't it? When he comes on, but that could be a good few weeks yet. Like we said, we've got players who are already performing to a decent level. Matt Felmington's, giving praise to 𝗵𝐿𝐼𝐼, spoke about how he was debating retiring last year. Fast forward to where we are now, and obviously tried to score against Warrington, and he wouldn't drop in for Takarangi at the moment, so credit to him. And like we've already said, it's not just 𝗵𝐿𝐼𝐼. You've got two out-and-out wingers who were desperate to play. Before we just talk about them wingers, Mike, what do you make on the Ethan Ryan situation at the moment? We're going to announce the squad for Castleford later on, but again, he hasn't been named in there, so he won't feature against the Tigers. Can you say a way back for him at the moment?
There's definitely a way back for him. I feel like he's just been a little bit unfortunate, is how I would look at it. There's maybe an untold story that we're not quite aware of when it comes to reasons behind his lack of selection. Obviously, he was named on the bench when we played the Catalan Dragons in the south of France, and from what I was told, or what I heard anyway, he was due to potentially come on and spell at hooker to give 𝐁𝐿𝐼𝐼 a break. But the way that the game was going, 𝐁 could play 80 minutes, and it was better to have an out-and-out hooker playing in that position than it was somebody coming in to cover. So it was maybe unfortunate again in that instance, and especially now the way, again, I feel like I keep talking about 𝗵𝐿𝐼𝐼, but just the way that he has done, he's made it incredibly difficult for him not to play. And that's what you've got to do when you get these chances. Tom Garrett, when he made his first appearance at Craven Park, he dropped his first ball in a friendly, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, here we go," we signed it. And the way that Garrett has responded from that, you think of Sam Wood, the first game in the Super League, he drops 2 balls, lets in 2 tries. The way he has responded has been brilliantly, and I think that is how you learn and grow as a player, is from adversity and sort of picking up your form based around the mistakes or the errors that you've got in your game, and just learning from them.
Yeah, exactly. And what about you, Dan? Can you see Ethan Ryan featuring for Rovers this season?
Definitely. I mean, 𝗵𝐿𝐼𝐼's the proof in the pudding, isn't he? Like Mike says, he's been unlucky. I believe he's only played around 10 or so games in 2 or 3 years, and that's crazily unlucky. It's such a bad injury record. I did think that he would come back sooner, though. I think I said in last week, that he would come back against Leigh, and he didn't. So it's a funny one with him, because to me, he's displayed Super League quality, in a lot of his performances, but it's just nailing down the run of games. But the thing is, as I said before, we've got a tight schedule coming up, so he's going to be utilised, I bet. I can really see that coming. So and then when he does get utilised, that's when he's really got to nail down this position, and touching wood doesn't get injured as well. No pun intended with wood.
I like that one. But yeah, I mean, so unfortunately, the club in their statement have said that the club will make no further comment, neither will Brad Takairangi on the situation. For me, I wish that was the end of it, but it's just going to be one of them things that seems to run until, we see him in a Rovers shirt on the pitch again. And, especially with the derby coming up, it's always a game of high drama, and there's always a backstory in the build-up, isn't there? And hope, what I wouldn't want is the Brad Takairangi situation to cloud over, a club that's, on the up, supporters that are excited, a lot of off-field developments. I don't want this to cloud over it. And hopefully, we can at some point very soon put this to bed, and we can start talking purely about, people's performances on the pitch, and regardless of what things have happened off it. But one game that we've all been waiting for and very excited about, and we've all been expecting a performance from Rovers to come, was against the Warrington Wolves. It was at a sold-out Craven Park. Fantastic crowd, fantastic night. The Rovers lined up like this. We had 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐫𝐿 returning, 𝗵𝐿𝐼𝐼, Wood, Kenny Dowell, Ryan Hall on the left, Mikey Lewis. Ryan Milnes was in the halves. Jordan Abdul missed out with earache. Tom Garrett, Matty Parcell, George King, Frankie Holton, Lynette and Minchella all started, and we had Staunton, Lytton, Sims and Marr on the bench. And Warrington were fresh from 4 straight defeats, and their build-up to the game was disrupted after getting stuck in traffic on the M62, which led to kick-off being delayed by 15 minutes. And it looked like the delayed build-up had affected the Wolves more than the Robins, after Warrington's Connor Wrench was caught napping after he put a foot into touch as he tried to claim the ball from a Rovers kick-off. Rovers went on to force a dropout from the ensuing set, which led to Frankie Holton crashing over the try line from close range for the first try of the game after just 2 minutes. The Robins were playing the game at 100 miles per hour, and it was the high tempo from Rovers, which led to the second try of the game after just 2 more minutes. Ryan Hall did really well to pick up a 𝗂𝐿𝐴𝐿 pass off his toes, and he finished powerfully in the corner for his first try of the game. It was then the turn of starman 𝗂𝐿A�𝐿 to get in on the action after Matty Parcell, Elliot Minchella and Mikey Lewis all combined to cut the Wolves defence wide open to leave the fullback with a score close to the posts. Try scorer 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐫𝐿 then became try provider on minute 17 after he dodged an on-rushing Warrington defender to slide a neat kick into the corner for that man, Jimmy Kay, to dive over. And although Rovers were splitting Warrington open at will, with Lewis and Matty Parcell both enjoying a field day, it was Wire who actually scored next with their first chance of the game. Gareth Widdop nailed the touchline conversion, and the Wolves were starting to show flickers of life leading into half-time. But Rovers were creating all the chances, and they had a golden opportunity to put the game to bed when Joe Bullock was sent to the sin bin after 3 quick-fire penalties were awarded to Rovers on the Warrington try line. The Robins could not capitalise before the break, but they did kill the Wolves off thanks to back-to-back tries just after the interval. First, Lewis raced over the try line under the sticks after scooping a loose 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐫𝐿 pass off the floor before Jez Litton backed up a break by the very impressive Ryan Hall to touchdown out wide. But for 3 missed conversions by 𝐂𝐡𝐚, the Robins would have been well and truly out of sight. As it was, a converted George Williams try made it 30 points to 12, which was indeed a flattering scoreline for the visitors. Another powerful finish from Hall in the corner brought the sellout crowd to their feet once more. But Warrington scored again through Josh 𝗂𝐿𝐿𝐴 despite shouts for a forward pass. That was the last meaningful act of the game, with Rovers undoubtedly winning the game in them opening 20 minutes. Mikey, them 20 minutes, wow. You know, we've been waiting, haven't we, to see a spell like that from the Robins. And, you know, if you was late to the ground, you was lucky because the kickoff was delayed, but you was entertained them first 20 minutes because it was scintillating rugby league, wasn't it?
Oh, it was so good to see. We've kind of almost been there and then not there, and we've not really fully delivered yet. Even after Friday night, I still don't think we've seen the best that this team can offer us. The spine link-up was so good. You know, 𝐂𝐡𝐚 really needed that performance because I feel like he could have potentially had a few people on his back in terms of the crowd in the stadium, and he really did answer some critics on Friday night. Unlucky with the boot. I know he missed 4 kicks, but he hit the post twice. Yeah. So, you know, if they go over, he's missed, 2 out of however many, 7 or 8. Yeah, you can kind of accept that. It just seemed to click. Rowan Milnes was a very well-able deputy for Jordan Abdul, to the point where we almost didn't realise that Abdul wasn't playing. Now, was that down to 𝐂𝐡𝐚? Was that down to Milnes? Was it down to Parcell? It's great that I don't really know why we didn't miss him, because there were so many different players who was offering a different level to what we've seen from them so far.
Yeah, obviously, Mike's just mentioned about 𝗂𝐿A�𝐿𝐴's taking over the kicking duties on Friday night, and that was, of course, because Jordan Abdul was missing from the side. When you saw the lineup and you saw Rowan Milnes was taking his place, what was your thoughts on that?
To be honest, I've been crying out for a little while to see Rowan Milnes play, because I do quite like it. I didn't necessarily feel like it needed to be for Abdul or for Lewis. I'm one of these where I want to see Jordan Abdul at 13 and have the three pivots there, and then spell Minchella for a little bit longer in the second row, and just kind of mix it up a little bit. We've seen too many times, in my opinion, now where we're not using that fourth substitute interchange on the bench. You know, the Ethan Ryan case, for example, in France. I just feel like if you had somebody in that position, you could just spell it around a little bit better. But, you know, I'm a lad that collects rugby shirts. I'm not somebody with X amounts of Super League and NRL managerial experience. So, you know, my opinion doesn't mean that much compared to the gaffer that's in charge. But it is something that I would love to see one day.
Yeah, and Matt Felminson just put, "Careful, Mike. People don't like that idea," and he's put a few laughing face emojis. But Dan, you know, Jordan Abdul, you know, it's probably credit to Rowan Milnes, isn't it, and 𝗂𝐿A�𝐿 that we didn't miss him, because you know what I would say about Jordan Abdul is we've definitely not seen the best of him this season, have we? And we've seen him do okay in games, you know, and he's ticked us over, but we haven't seen the best of him yet. And it's a bit similar to Rowan Milnes. You know, I think the beauty with Rowan Milnes is he keeps us ticking over. And when you've got a player like 𝗂𝐿A�𝐿, who I saw featuring the line on numerous occasions on Friday night, you know, and take over them attacking responsibilities, maybe, and he also did a few kicks. I think, it took a bit of pressure off Roy Milnes as well, and it allowed him to play his game. Obviously, we saw Mikey Lewis with the ball a number of times running at the Warrington line, but for them first 20 minutes, Dan, Warrington just couldn't find an answer to Matty Parcell, to Mikey Lewis, to Roy Milnes. There was just no answer, was there?
Yeah, Matty Parcell ripped them apart at the ruck. That was so important for us to start off the game like that. So, I was really impressed with Parcell. Actually, you know what? It's hard to single out players in that game because they were all so good. I did list a few. Ryan Hall, that take, for that try, I thought he could have knocked it on, easily could have knocked it on, but no, George King, as per usual. Just with George King, it's like doing the basics so well. And in that forward battle as well, where I highlighted it last week, where we needed to win that forward battle, and we did, in large part thanks to the likes of King, just running in hard, and it really helped us. Elliot Minchella, I felt that he's gone under the radar a little bit so far this season with his performances. He's done well, especially after coming back from his ACL. Frankie Holton, need I say more? When's he ever going to miss a tackle? So yeah, Mikey Lewis. That take from the Coop pass, it was like another hospital pass, wasn't it? And Lewis took it and he just sped away, and it was in. So just brilliant. And like you say, Chris, that's what we've been wanting, isn't it? The Rovers of 2021.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that I think Warrington were caught cold, whether that was because of the disrupted build up to the game, etc. But do you know what? I think Rovers were, you could see, absolutely desperate to play with pace, intensity and aggression. And I think even if the game had kicked off when it should have done, I don't think you'd have seen Rovers play any differently. I think Rovers the game plan was there. And one feature of the game, Mikey, was that we saw a lot more of Matty Parcell and Jes Litton at the pitch at the same time, didn't we?
Yeah, it's almost tried and tested, and it's great to see when they're sort of spelling each other. Sorry, not spelling each other on the pitch at the same time, because I don't actually quite know where Litton plays when Parcell's on the pitch. It's sometimes really difficult to sort of catch what position he's attacking and defending, and he's almost like a spare man that's flying around and just sort of getting to the ruck before Matt if he can. And when they play together, there's just a little bit of extra energy in and about the side. If you think back to the first two games of the season, we started with Jes and Matt came off the bench. And after that, we've kind of flipped back now where Matt starts and will probably play, and then Jes comes on in a tactical position. I don't think that there's a time where Tony Smith will say, right, today, Jes, you're coming on after 25 minutes. I think he reads the game and looks for a pinpoint to bring him on. Yeah. And he's getting that timing right more often than not. And that is really pivotal in terms of Rovers and if they're going to win a game. Yeah,
I think Litton came on for Minchella on Friday, and like you say, we see Litton popping up all over, and I think he almost gets that free role, doesn't he, to play wherever he needs to, where he follows the ball around. And it seems to me now that when Rovers want to play with pace and play with speed, they need two halfbacks and they need two hookers on, because that really increases the speed around the ruck. And like I said, in them first 20 minutes, Warrington had no chance. But it wasn't just then as well, was it? It was the start of the second half. We've seen time before where Rovers have started a bit sluggish, a bit slowly in that second half. We've allowed teams get back into the game, but Rovers were intent on playing with pace again, and we saw that, didn't we, in the start of the second half, Dan?
Yeah, we did. I felt the first try of the second half was always going to be crucial, because it was 26, wasn't it? And we've seen Rovers in the past, 20-0 up, and 𝗂𝐻 2016,
Whoa. We don't mention.
I had to. There's this one just to illustrate how far they've come, because they played so well in those opening 10 minutes of the second half, and of course 5 minutes in they score again, and that pretty much wrapped the game up. And it sometimes, Chris, with Rovers, you feel, is it a lack of complacency that does it set into the mindset? You never know for sure, but it seems that way. But it didn't on Friday night. There was just that energy. It felt that it was meant to be, for him on that night, with over 10,000 there as well. And some really nice memories for the young kids who would have attended the first game, the £1 initiative and all that. So yeah, really good. It was just our night, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Dan makes a good point there, doesn't he, Mike? That, you know, when the club are going to an effort to pack the park and invite new people to the ground and try and get people excited, it's really important that the team respond early and they put on a show. And I think Tony Smith realised that. He mentioned that in his post-game comments about how good the supporters was, but how much they wanted to put on a good performance for everyone. And one player who did put on a really performance was Ryan Hall, and I think he showed all his class, all his experience with them 2 tries that he scored. And what we're starting to see now is Sean Kenny-Dowell and Ryan Hall really start to make that left edge their own again. I think Ķēniņš, he's still suffering a little bit. I think Tony Smith mentioned that he wasn't quite 100% on Friday night. I think he was suffering from an illness, but you know, sometimes even an 80% fit Ķēniņš is enough to do a job for Rovers. But special mention for Kenny-Dowell, 350th appearance on Friday. And Mike, his 50th consecutive appearance for the Robins. I mean, it's a crazy stat, really, isn't it?
It is when you think of that. He's kind of played through a pandemic as well. You know, that we've had some players who have been unavailable for selection for various different illnesses and diseases, and the fact that he's been able to sort of power through. Obviously, he got quite a bit of criticism in his first season. Maybe we didn't see the best of him, did we? But you know, he was named captain ahead of the 2021 season, and again, he's somebody who was led by example from the off. You know, I can think of him going off in a game where we thought he's injured, he's not coming back on, and we won't see him next week. And he was back on in the about 20 minutes later. And he really is somebody who I feel like he's a great leader, and he must be brilliant for some of these younger lads to be able to train alongside day in, day out. And I think 50 consecutive games at any age is incredible. But for somebody who was in the latter stages of their career to be able to string 50 games together consecutively, and I feel like it feels even more valid at Rovers in the sense that it was game number 1 of his streak was game number 1 of his Rovers career. You know, he's never missed a game for Rovers, so it's definitely a little bit of a record to behold. But yeah, 350 games, wow.
Yeah, and I think if people got a chance to watch I think Rose put a video out on social media of Tony Smith presenting SKD with his jersey for the game, and you know, if you listen to Tony Smith's words, you can't praise him enough, and the influence he has on the boys. And Sean Kenny-Dowell, you know, he's an experienced performer. He's been around for a while now, and he seems to still be enjoying his rugby league. Dan, can you see him staying on beyond this season? Because it's getting to that point now, isn't it, where contracts are starting to be offered, players are starting to think about what they're doing at the end of the season, even though we're not even a third of the way through. Would you like to see him in a Hull Kingston Rovers shirt next season?
I'd love to. I mean, how can you really replace him? You know, he's one of those players where, especially over the past 2 seasons, because I think in 2020, his first season, it was a little bit of a rocky season, not his best. I think even he's admitted that in the past as well. But these past 2 seasons, he's really been a driving force behind our revival. So it's hard to see that edge without him, actually. But, you know, there will come a time when he moves on. The thing is, I think he's almost at the point beyond no return where he's played well this season. And, you know, I think he's going to want a new deal anyway. But whereas, like, from the club's point of view, I think he'll be 34, 35 going into next season. He might decline a little bit then, and then he'll have to see that season out, and maybe he will call it a day. But like I say, Chris, I think he's beyond that point of no return where people want to see him sign a contract. He seems happy here as well, and, you know, he's really taken to this club, hasn't he, with the way he leads it. And like Mike said, you know, kids looking up to him at the club. You know, what you've got to do is, I mean, 16-year-olds who play for us now, just be whipping the phone out, looking at Wikipedia and seeing what he's done in the game, and wow, he's given me that advice. You know, that must mean something. He's got that kind of effect, and I think that's probably why the players picked him as the captain.
Yeah, definitely. And it's I think for me with Sean Kenny-Dowell, it's probably going to be more of a lifestyle choice where he stays on another year. Obviously, he's been over here now for a little bit, and he's been here during the COVID pandemic and stuff, and whether he feels his body's got one more season. Of course, Ryan Hawley's staying on for 1 more year, so, you know, can we eke out another year? I think is Lynette out of contract as well, Mikey? You know, are we going to try and tie that left edge down? Because I'm sure there'll be suitors who are especially chasing Ķēniņš. It will be very interesting to see what he does as well. So there's a few question marks over players in the squad at the moment, isn't there? And another player who was starting to find his feet again is Will Maher. Mike, it's good to see him back playing, isn't it?
Oh, he's a man mountain. You know, he's so big, such a big bloke, and I feel like he's probably got a lot more to offer than we've seen as well. But he is slowly there. He's getting there steadily, just eking these performances out now. And I just think he's somebody who he's a great squad player to have. You know, we spoke quite a lot about our positions and who we're going to play there, and every single position we have got options. And it's possibly the first time we've had this much strength in depth, even in just a 30-man squad. We just feel like Tom Garrett's not going to play on Friday night. We know he's not going to play because of the concussion protocols, but I'm not massively worried about that because I know that we've got somebody else that, Greg Richards or a Will Mart that can just slot in and hopefully give Garrett the rest he needs to Ripple FC a new one.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's bubbling along nicely, isn't it, for that? We've already mentioned about Tony Smith's interchanges and throws a bit of a curveball in there. One of the curveballs for me, Dan, was 𝐂𝐴𝐵𝐶𝐵𝐿 coming on for a 20-minute stint at the end of the game. I don't think he particularly played badly or anything like that. It was just an interesting 20 minutes of rugby league. I think he had 2 carries, 17 tackles. I think he made something like 10 metres. Made lots of dummy runs. It was just a bit of a, for me, it's not a criticism of his performance. It is a bit of just an odd time to bring him on when we're how the game's going, etc. But maybe that's Tony Smith, isn't it? And Mikey's already said, like 𝗂𝗏, I think there's not always a plan with him. He reads the game and he looks at when players can make an impact. And it's just interesting to get your thoughts, Dan, on 𝗂𝐴𝐵𝐶𝐵𝐿's 20-minute stint at the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't much to write home about, was it really? I mean, maybe Tony Smith felt that, it was done and dusted, so we'll just save him, rest him ahead of this week and the derby and that schedule that I've alluded to. So it's a real funny one because there's a dark cloud hanging over his future. We've got to admit that. He said himself that he misses his son. I believe his son's coming over, isn't he, at the midpoint of this year, in the next few months. So it is kind of tough to comment on that one, but you would expect one of your key imports to get more minutes than that, unless he's carrying some sort of injury that we don't know about, maybe. Yes, it's an odd one.
But Mikey, competition for places, that's what it brings, isn't it? We've got players returning. Obviously, we've already spoken about Brad Takairangi at the start of the podcast. The competition for places is really hotting up now. And, after a bit of a slow start for Rovers, we're now looking at games where we're talking about players simply missing out not because they're injured, but because either Tony Smith thinks they're not on form or they're just, Tony Smith's going a different way. And it's a good position for us to be in, isn't it, Mikey?
Yeah, of course it is, because we've obviously seen the way that the suspensions have been going, even though that has eased up a little bit in the last couple of weeks. Injuries, that happen at every single team. We're going to get injuries at some point, and we know that we have cover there. Is quite reassuring, is probably the word I would use. It's really reassuring. You look at Will Dagger and the way that Dagger played in Lachlan Coote's absence. And I don't think anybody could complain about anything that we saw from Will Dagger in those 3 or 4 games. And there's probably another 3, 4, 5 different players that I've not even mentioned who have kind of been on the fringes of playing that have really, really stood up when they've had their opportunity. But I just want to follow up from something that Dan just said a moment ago about 𝗂𝐴𝐵𝐶𝐵𝐿. His son's actually over here now. He arrived this week. So let's see if 𝗂𝐴𝐵𝐶𝐵𝐿 plays on Friday, and let's see what sort of performance we see from him, because I'm sure, being the proud father that he is, he's really going to want to put in a stellar performance while his son's over.
Yeah, and like we've already said, we're all human. We all enjoy our home comforts. We all like our things that are familiar to us, and family and friends is one of those things, isn't it? So it'd be interesting to see what we get from 𝗂𝐴𝐵𝐶𝐵𝐿 now, and hopefully we get to see consistency from his performances. That's the only thing I'd want is consistency and seeing him week in, week out, not play 1, miss 2, play 1, miss 2, that kind of thing. Let's get a bit of consistency. But that was a fantastic performance from Hull Kingston Rovers, and it's going to take another fantastic performance on Friday night if we're going to get into the semi-finals of the Challenge Cup. Of course, we take on the Castleford Tigers at Craven Park on Friday night. The club will be hoping for a few more people to pack the park than there was at the league game, and it's building up to a really interesting tie. To help us build up to that game and give us a preview is how are you doing, Roy?
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, Roy Dalton from Cast Tigers Stats. Great to have you on board. You helped us preview our previous fixture against Castleford Tigers not that long ago. We meet again on Friday in the Challenge Cup. Of course, our last Challenge Cup opponents was Castleford Tigers, and that was definitely a game to remember with it going into Golden Point. Just before we announce the squads, give us a bit of an update on how Castleford have been doing since we last spoke, because I think when we last spoke, it was a bit doom and gloom.
Certainly was. Better than that. So just getting players into the right positions. Greg Eden being back in the squad's been an absolute lifesaver for us at the moment. So getting him to get ball, he's capable of changing games, and I always sort of knew that. But getting him regular game time has been good. Getting Niall Evans back at fullback, just having players in correct positions. Paul McShane's been playing all over the place, playing as a 7, playing as a sub-9, and it's been wrecking us in terms of being able to put consistent performances together. But having everybody in the right positions is paying dividends now.
Yeah, one player who is going to miss out, and he's missing out on return to Craven Park again, is George Lawler. He's serving the first of his 3-game ban. Dan Smith comes into the squad to replace him. I'll just quickly read out the Castleford squad for Friday night. We have Niall Evans, Daryl Alford, Jordan Turner, Jake Mamo, Farimo, Truman, Liam Watts, Paul McShane, Kenny Edwards, Adam Milner, Joe Westerman, Nathan Massey, George Griffin, Fanua, Tyler Heppy, James Clare, Alex Sutcliffe, Daniel Smith, Greg Eden, Matagi, and Gareth O'Brien. Lots of names there that'll be familiar to Hull Kingston Rovers supporters. And like you said, Lee Radford's been able to start fielding a settled team. Who have been the standout players other than Greg Eden so far?
Kenny Edwards had a great game last time out, and was, I think, finding his groove in terms of where he can really push himself and get amongst the big clean breaks, the big runs and things like that. Joe Westerman's been an absolute revelation at 13. Just what a player. He's been, even through some of the poor matches, he's been carrying the team to push through and get some results and making meters that a loose forward shouldn't really be making by all accounts. But so they're the standouts other than Greg, and Jordan Turner's been great as well. I was just pulling off the stats while I was waiting to come on line of all the different players from the Toulouse game, and it's just a lovely thing to look at because everyone's getting 200 meters and stuff like that, and it's just like, oh, good. But it's against Toulouse, isn't it? So it's they're unfortunately becoming that team that people are looking to beat. They've got the odd result against some teams, but when we played them, it was relatively easy going.
Yeah, was that good preparation for you coming into this game, or is that been a feature for Cass that they need to start scoring points and get into rhythms of playing a team like Toulouse allows you to do that?
Our issue in scoring tries. Our issue is stopping them being scored. So we've got the worst defensive record bar Toulouse in the league, and so it's just like we can score tries for love of money, and it's just bang them in left, right, centre, fine, but getting that defence sorted out is going to be our trick, really. As soon as we can, because I was really disappointed that we didn't nil them, because I think that would have been a right boost for us. We got to let them have a 6, and it was just like, oh no, I wish we would have nilled them, but that's where we're at. But it's coming together slowly, slower than I would have liked, but we are getting there. It's going to end up being a really tight game against you.
Yeah, earlier on in the season, of course, Castleford travelled over to Craven Park. The game finished 26 points to 10 in Robin's favour. Obviously, that game was marred in a way by the 2 sin binnings in the first half, which pretty much gave Rovers a massive foot up. I know we've already mentioned that you've got players coming back, etc. I suppose the mindset from Castleford fans will be a lot different from that game, won't it, in terms of what to expect and stuff. But if Rovers are going to get a victory on Friday night, which I'm sure you hope they don't, is our key to unlocking the Castleford defence? Is it fast attack? Is it offloads? Or can we go on the middle and score tries?
With the middle section we've put in, Smith is a great player. He's an absolute workhorse as well. So I'm glad that he's back in and doing bits there as well. You guys do the most runs from dummy half in the whole league by like solid points. I think the next one down, you're 16.14, 16 essentially. And I think the next one's down something like 12 or 11. So like by some good clear points, you're getting out of that ruck really quickly and trying to steal those yards coming forward, whether it works for you or not. But the point is that you're doing a really quick ruck speed, which can kill teams, and that's how you're getting those results in the middle of the park, by making everybody work really fast, and you've got the engines to do that, which is good for you. We don't do that much. We do more offloads and things like that, but it's we make 4 more offloads than you per game in a general game. So it'll be the fight between running from dummy half versus impacting the tackles and offloading that ball. What's the more disruptive play? And it will just depend on the day, I think.
Yeah, Mikey, I don't think this is going to be a game where defence is on top, do you? I'm expecting to see plenty of points scored and probably a little bit like our previous Challenge Cup tie against Castleford. I can see this going right down, to the wire, to, even could be a drop goal deciding it, etc. Because both teams are scoring lots of points at the moment, aren't they, Mikey?
They are, yeah. I think it will be a close game, but I do think there will be points because, as Roy alluded to there, Cass have struggled defensively. So have we. We've kind of reassured that a little bit recently, but we're still open to that kind of damage ourselves. So it's probably going to be a close, high-scoring game. If you look at the 4 quarterfinals, I would probably say ours is maybe the most 50-50 out of the 4, where on the day, one team is obviously going to win and go into the semi-finals, but ours probably does feel like the hardest game to call. I'm just hoping that the fact that our ball came out of the bag first will give us that home advantage and just be enough, but it's going to be close.
And Dan, when you look at that Castleford side, we've already mentioned it's slightly different to what we saw at the start of the season. Who were the players from Castleford who stand out for you?
So a bit of a disclaimer for Roy, I'm not wearing this shirt on purpose due to its likeness to Wakefield Trinity. I'm not that unwelcoming. And I'm not that smart either, because I didn't sort of think of that at the time, but I've only just realised. But anyway, as for Cass, I see Paul McShane as still being their key figure. I mean, at that Super League tie at Craven Park, I think they kept him quiet, although, if I'm not mistaken, I think that McShane played out of position. I could be wrong about that, but I think he played in the halves maybe. Yeah, so, I mean, yeah. So keeping him quiet will be important. Truman. Is it Truman? The Richardson, sorry. I think on his day, he can have a really good game when he's behind a pack that can dominate. And it goes back to what I wanted to say originally, is that the forward battle is going to be important for this game as well. I mean, when I think of Lee Radford as a coach, instantly I think of Bradford Bulls, the prototype of having a big side up and down the pitch as far as possible, even in the backs. And in the backs, they are a big side. So if they can get on top of us, which, with the likes of Liam Watts and others, and Dan Smith as well, it's possible, So that's going to be the key battle for me. That's where the game's going to be won. But it is interesting that you've got McShane and we've got Parcell and Lytton, that battle of getting out of the ruck and everything. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I brought you the Castleford squad. I'll just name the Rovers one very quickly. The headlines are Will Dagger and Dean Hadley retain, Tom Garrett and Ethan Ryan make way. Tom Garrett suffered a head injury against Warrington, which means under protocols he's got to miss out. Lachlan Coote, Ben Crooks, Sean Kenny-Dowell, Ryan Hall, Jordan Abdul, Matty Parcell, George King, Dean Hadley, Kane Lynette, Matty Staunton, Jez Lytton, Corbin Sims, Elliot Minchella, Jimmy Kinehorst, Will Dagger, Mikey Lewis, Ryan Milnes, Will Marr, Sam Wood and Greg Richards make up the 21-man squad for Friday. Mikey, just before we go to Roy, are we expecting the lineup to be pretty identical to the Warrington game, minus, of course, Tom Garrett?
You're smarter than to underestimate Tony Smith to play the same week 2 teams in a row. Yeah. We just get to that point where we think we're getting settled. I wouldn't change I know what I was saying about Abdul earlier, but I think I would go with Rowan and Mikey again, and just sort of give Abdul another week, because if he's had this ear infection, and we spoke about a hip issue, I believe, the week before, which took him out of his goal kicking duties. We're in a luxurious position at the minute where we've got the options to not necessarily play somebody if they're not 100% fit. So, go with Rowan and Mikey again. I would go with pretty much the same team. Obviously, we know that Garrett can't play. So, probably Greg Richards will drop in onto the bench with Sims or Ma starting. And that's the way I would go.
Yeah, of course, Roy. Lee Radford knows his way to Wembley. He's been there as a player, as a coach. And of course, he'll be desperate to bring silverware to Castleford. What are the fans' expectations around this game at the moment? Is there real belief that he can come to Rovers and hopefully get a victory?
I think it's more we hope so. So I think the jury's still out whether it's all working. So it's going in the right direction, but everything's so tight. So some of the research I did for this, the teams that we've played, that 𝗂𝐻𝐼 played and that CASA played, the delta, which is like the difference between the points conceded against the sides that we've lost, is 2 points. So we played Huddersfield together and we lost by 12, you lost by 10. We played Wigan, you lost by 14, we lost by 10. We shouldn't have lost anyway because of the weird card in that game. Pass that over. And then Salford, you lost by 10 and we lost by 10. So it's 34 versus 32. So that's how tight it is. The only standout thing is the game against Warrington, where you beat them by 16 and we lost by 24. But it's hardly recognisable, that squad, just because of everyone being out of position and stuff. And I think the Darryl Powell wanting to get one over his old club might have played a factor in that as well. So it's so tight, so unbelievably tight. Some of the metrics, I was like doing lots of comparing stuff, and it's just like you really can't call this. And I think that's what both sets of fans are like. If we lose, it'll just be like, well, that's what happened on the day. If we win, it'll just be like, well, that's what happened on the day. And I think it'll be all to do with the plans that we've made in training and being able to do them and get one over on you and win those little tiny 1% of things in the middle of the park.
Yeah, and I think the bookies pretty much back you up on that. Thanks to Matt Charles from N Charles Bookmakers up in Bridlington. He sent over some odds, and he's got Rovers at evens to win outright, Castleford 4-5. On the handicap, Rovers are actually +2 at 10-11. So you might get a bit of value. I was a bit surprised with that one, Mikey. Rovers getting the +2. But
advantage.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah, it's sure to be a really tight and interesting game. And to be honest, Mikey, we've talked about Lee Radford's, he knows where he knows his route to the Challenge Cup final. But I think Rovers fans are really desperate for a bit of silverware, and we've got a few wrongs to right. After that Leeds Challenge Cup game. How much importance do you think Rovers fans are putting on the Challenge Cup? Because realistically, we're not going to win Super League this year, are we? We're not, and I'd be surprised if we get into a grand final yet. As we talk, beat Castleford if we can, semi-final, and then all of a sudden you're in the final. It really opens up, doesn't it, Mikey?
Yeah, when you say what are Rovers fans' expectations, I think we was all getting a bit excited when we did our season preview, saying that we're going to go to Wembley and. Obviously it's Spurs this year, we're going to go to Spurs to the Challenge Cup final, and a lot of that was just a bit of overconfidence at the beginning of the season. But you're a victory away from a semi-final, and we've been here before. Cass have been here before. We've both made Challenge Cup finals in the last sort of 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So there is definitely room for encouragement for both sides. Rovers have won 3 of the last 5 games. They've got a little bit of momentum now. The things are starting to click a little bit. Am I looking forward to playing Cass in a quarter-final? No, probably not. Are they looking forward to playing us? No, probably not. So, there's going to be quite a nervous atmosphere, I would have said, in that stadium, because when we played each other the other year, last year, where we had the 20 minutes nearly of Golden Point, there was no fans in the stadium that day. And we all know how the East Stand can roar a team home to victory. So we've just got to hope that the home advantage is what is enough for us on the day.
Yeah, and Roy, can we expect a big following from Cass on Friday night?
I think there's the interest there. I think it's one of those ties where you're right. You're very few games away from some major silverware, and it must have been one of the things that Lee Ratchford put his CV on and just said, look, proven track record here of getting some silverware in the cupboard, which, we've got the old hubcap from 2017, but apparently no one cares about that. But it's getting some proper recognised silverware would be quite nice for us, I think.
Yeah, and for me, I know we're talking, Dan, we're talking about how important performances are, and we saw that against Warrington, didn't we? It was probably our first 80-minute performance of the season. But cup games, who cares about the performance? It's all about who's winning at the end, isn't it? And we saw that in the Challenge Cup tie previously, where it went down to golden point. Dan, it's going to probably be a game where we go toe-to-toe. Who do you think could be the match winner for the Robins?
Matt Parcell, I think. Again, winning the ruck is going to be important against them, tiring them out. So I think Parcell's going to be the key to victory.
Yeah, and Roy, which cast man do you think could fire you to victory?
Two, really. I think you're right in saying that Paul McShane's how we operate, and I think if he has a good game, we all have a good game. And then Greg Eden noticeably was subbed off quite early back in the Toulouse game, and that was for no sort of medical reason other than resting him for this game. So I expect a fresh-faced Greg Eden full of energy, which might cause you a few issues.
Yeah, although we'll be hoping it'll be the Greg Eden that we saw on a number of occasions at Hull Kingston Rovers, where he didn't quite hit the heights.
We don't mention that he's been purged of these demons.
yeah. Well, maybe one more bad game at Craven Park, and we'll. He's maybe due one of them. But no, it's been fantastic. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully he can come on board again. We seem to be playing cast quite regularly at the moment. So it'd be great to get you back on. And anyone who's listening and watching, get back to Craven Park on Friday and cheer on the boys, because I think it's going to be potentially one of the games of the season at the moment, with both teams sort of scoring points, free-flowing on the back of two big victories for both sides. So it's going to be a really interesting night. But thanks for joining us, Roy.
No problem. All right, have a good one.
Cheers, Roy.
See you later.
Mikey, a lot of people want Jordan Abdul back in the side, but they don't want to drop Rowan Milnes. I've seen suggestions that he could play at loose forward, but that would mean losing Elliot Minchella. Sometimes the coach has got to be brave, hasn't he, and just pick the right players in the right positions. And sometimes when it's not your day, it's not your day.
This is it. I mean, I think I would go with Rowan Milnes. Abdul, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I've not really got any massive justification as why I would go for Rowan Milnes. I like the formula that we saw against Warrington. It worked. Abdul might even enhance that against Cass. It's such a difficult one to make, and I suppose that's why we're fans, aren't we? We're not paid to make these decisions and these calls. It's going to be really interesting to see, what sort of lineup we do have, and hopefully it's keeping Castleford guessing, because if you're trying to coach your team, and obviously Lee Radford will know Jordan Abdul pretty well, he'll know that he'll be practicing his teams to defend these massive bombs, where I didn't really see any massive bombs against Warrington because we didn't really have anybody that was able to do that. So it could be messing with their preparation a little bit. The way that 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐫𝐭𝐞 links up with from fullback, does that give us almost too many chefs in the kitchen trying to do that creative element? So with Rowan Milnes taking that little bit of a backward step, that might actually help Lachlan 𝐂𝐡𝐚 be a better player as well. There's, I could sit here and argue why Jordan Abdul could play as well. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those. It's just so difficult to call.
Yeah, I do definitely like Rowan Milnes' calmness. And Dan, there's probably two schools of thought in there's the one where if your best players are fit, it don't matter who else is fit, you play your best players, or the players who are performing well keep their shirt and they keep their place in the side. Which camp have you got a foot in?
I wish I could be in both, but I've got to be in one. So I really like Rowan Milnes. I think you both know that. But I think they should play Abdul, because right now he's further along in his career. He's the better player. And we are 80 minutes away from Ellen Road. Am I correct in saying the semi-final is going to be at Ellen Road? So it's such a big game for us, and it's so winnable as well. I mean, the draw could have been called to us. We could have played St Helens away, somebody like that, or Catalans away. But we've got Castleford at home, and we've got the number. You know, we've proven that a few weeks ago. So I think you need to play your best players. And on the note of Abdul, I think that he's going to improve as the season goes on. So he hasn't been at his best, but I'm pretty sure that he's going to get there.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And what we've seen from Tony Smith is, no matter what you think the squad might be and what your fact team might be and who your interchanges will be, it probably won't be, because we've seen it before time and time again, haven't we, where Tony Smith is prepared to throw a curveball in, and and that, I think that comes from he plays each game as it comes, and that's why I wouldn't be surprised if Rowan Milnes plays. I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Abdul does. I wouldn't be surprised if they both do. Who knows what can happen between now and Friday night. So it's definitely going to be one to watch. And like I said, I'm desperate for Rovers to get back to a Challenge Cup final. I really hope we put on a performance. And like I said, it's all about the W at the end of it, isn't it? And however we do it, I just hope that we do it, because I think as a club, I think we need to be featuring in these top games as regularly as possible now. We've had too many years down in the doldrums, not featuring in important games. So I think it's vitally important for the club. Something else that is very important to the club, though, Mikey, is revenue. And of course, Rovers will be looking to maximise their revenue streams with the launch of their latest shirt, which was done last night. Of course, it's Rovers' 140th anniversary, and they released a new Fed shirt, the spirit of the Boilermakers. Mikey, of course, if people don't know already, you're a very keen Hull Kingston Rovers shirt collector. If people are watching this now, they can see that you've got a huge collection behind you. Mikey, I know you've had a bit of an insight into the shirt. What can you tell us about Rovers' new Fed shirt?
Well, to be fair, and I'm not going to sort of shake the question a little bit, but the article that is on Rovers' website, on the Hull KR website, with the spirit of the Boilermakers, there is so much information in there. So if you haven't read that, definitely give that a read. But it's basically a shirt that's designed off the back of an untold story, and it's all the way back in 1892, where the club was formed, and it was by a group of Boilermakers. And I'll be honest, I've got a lot to do with the heritage, and I've heard all these different things and all these different stories, and it's something that's never really landed on my lap for me to learn. The reason why I started attending heritage evenings wasn't because I knew a lot about Rovers heritage and I wanted to show off. It was because I wanted to learn more about things I didn't know about. And this definitely kind of comes up into that category. And the thought and the little nuances and the design intricacies that have gone into the design of this shirt it's really touching in the terms of the story, and also in producing a beautifully aesthetically looking shirt. It's definitely received some really good raps. I had a little look on the website this afternoon, and it's sold out in sizes medium all the way through to 2XL, and it only went on sale yesterday. So there's going to be a bit of a dilemma there, which I'm sure that the people at Rovers are working pretty hard on to see if they can potentially maybe even get some more in. Might not be possible, but it's definitely a really good sign that we've been able to produce a shirt, and it's sold as quickly as it has.
Yeah, it is a fantastic shirt, and what I would say is, it looks absolutely fantastic, and like Mikey said, the detail that's on the shirt really needs looking at and appreciating, because for me now, I think clubs, they can't be lazy anymore. They can't just churn out kit and equipment and stuff like that, and without any backstory to it. And I think, Rovers deserve a whole load of credit for the away shirt. I know it divided some opinion, but do you know what? It's got a story to tell, and it's telling a story of the city and the heritage. This shirt is another one that does that, and I think now I can see why it's sold out and why it's selling in record numbers, because A, it looks great, but B, it tells a story of our history, and that's why I think it's really important. Mikey, how different do you think the player issue shirt to the fan shirt will be?
It'll be, in terms of its aesthetics, it'll look the same. Obviously, the fit's very different, and the material that's used is also different. The material that is on the player spec shirts, it's a much more fitted material. It doesn't have that much give and that much stretch in it. They do put extra side panels on the side of the player spec shirts, whereas the replica are just sort of a front piece of fabric and a back piece. These have side panels that have got that little bit of stretching, which is what does give it that little bit more sort of support for it to cling to the body. We're expecting to see all of the design to be sublimated on the player spec shirt, whereas with the replica, some of the sponsors are embroidered, some of them are sublimated, and some of them are heat applied as well. So there's a few differences in that way. But the one thing that we've been able to pull out of the launch is that the club are actually going to issue the player shirts with the player heritage numbers on. Some clubs have been doing this for a few years now. Clubs such as Leeds and Wigan, they do them quite frequently on all of the shirts, but it's something that Rovers haven't yet sort of dipped their toe into. A lot of clubs just put them above the club crest or below the club crest, but Rovers are going to do it on the back of the neck in the replacement place for the 1882, which appears on the replica shirt there. So there's definitely going to be some differences to that we see that we're going to play in. The material that is used can also affect the dye that is used to colour a shirt. So, for example, if you look at the away shirt this year, it's such a very vibrant yellow when you see a supporter wearing one in the stands. But for anybody that's either attended an away fixture or has seen one of the away playing shirts, the yellow is a lot calmer. It's not quite as bright as what it is. So there is the potential that when we see this new shirt, it might look slightly different as a player spec than it does as the replica. But to this point, we've not seen one of those yet, which would, to my knowledge, say that they're not here if they haven't used it yet.
Yeah, and Mikey, you've already given us a real fantastic insight into the shirt, but I know you'll be doing a much more detailed review. Can you tell us when that'll be and when people will be able to find it on your website, etc.? Yeah,
the review is actually up now. I put it out at 7:00. So excellent. Yeah, if anybody heads over to 𝗂𝐿𝐴 shirts and just looks at the latest post on the website or even on any of the social medias, you'll be able to find the detailed article there. There's some little bits of the story about the shirt, some little bit more design and intricate detailing that goes on. There's a few tweets from the club that they put out as well. So I basically try and tell the story that the club tells. It's something that new shirts for me is it's like Christmas Day. I get a few a year where I get to be able to enjoy and sort of revel in the old shirt launch, and it's something that is obviously it's quite passionate about. There's a lot of people that think I know what a shirt's going to look like before it comes out, and I didn't know what this shirt was going to look like until I saw the video on Monday evening, and it was kind of like, well, it's going to be green and gold. That's kind of the way that we're led to believe it's going. So for me, I enjoy being a part of the surprise too.
Yeah, and do you know what? On Friday, I saw the Boilermakers. They put it on the screen, didn't they? The logo and stuff. And then I heard something on the tannoy, but it sort of just went over my head. I didn't. Yeah. Register.
Well, you alluded to something earlier about me potentially being a streaker, and on Friday I was supporting with Neil Rudd and Craig Franklin. Actually, he texted me yesterday and he said, "Look, something's going to happen that happened on Friday, and I promise you, we would have done it if you were there or not." Because he didn't want. I don't think he wanted to feel like they were trying to pull a bit of a prank on me. And we was running down the script, and I'm reading it out, and it's about the Boilermakers, and then it's from Vauxhall Grove, and again, I hadn't heard the story before, so none of it sort of twigged at me. And I spoke to Craig on the phone last night, and he said to me, I couldn't look at you when any of it was happening, because if I looked at you, I'd have laughed, and then you'd have been like, what are you laughing at? Because I literally had absolutely no idea that had anything to do with it. And then when you start piecing it back, you're like, of course. And I pride myself on being able to spot these little things, these little hidden things. So yeah, he's got one on me there, which is a bit annoying.
Yeah, and Dan, shirts come and go. You've got a classic. You're wearing a classic right now on screen. If for the people who are listening, but this is, I think for me, this is a shirt that will hopefully long live in the memory of Rover supporters, because for me, I think it's an absolute classic.
The one that I'm wearing, or the one that's just come out?
Both.
Yeah. I mean, why not both? Yeah, I mean, it's got the potential, hasn't it? It struck me that since they've been doing Fair shirts, which has been since 2014, correct me if I'm wrong, mate, because you're the shirt overlord. Right, I got the nod of approval for anyone who's on audio only. So, I mean, they've been doing charity shirts a lot of the time, but this time it feels so close to home because, of course, I mean, these days, Hazel Road, you think of Hazel Road, Hull FC, but no, it's actually where this club was born. So, I mean, to educate people about that is good. And I think that it's serving its purpose in that way as well, in terms of educating people, especially youngsters, because I think a lot of people, a fair amount of people do know that they were formed by a group of local boilermakers, but kids who get the shirt bought for them, they'll look at it and think, oh, why is it green? What's going on here? This isn't like, why is that happening? So then it can be explained to them, oh, right. And then that's how people get to know. So it serves that kind of purpose as well. But yeah, I like it. And in general, I think that they've done a pretty good job with the fair shirts in recent years as well. Yeah. I think my favourite, though, was that 2018 one, because I like learning about the First World War, and when they did that, I thought, wow, perfect, 100 years on. So yeah, they've had a lot of crackers, and I think this is up there as well with them.
Yeah, and Dan, just for people who are listening on the podcast and not watching, just tell us what shirt you're wearing at the moment.
1989 to 91 away. It might be 92, but I think it was 91. So what do you say, Mike?
It creeped into 92 because of the old the way the seasons used to overlap a bit like football do these days.
Brilliant.
Just ever so slightly, only a couple of months.
Absolute. Well, it's an absolute belting shirt. And Mikey, just give a plug for your website and social media so people know where to find you.
Yeah, websites 𝗂𝐿𝐼shirts.co.uk. Social medias across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Often posting various different shirt-related content. I've got me talking shirts episodes. I've got a new one of them. I'm going to launch that tomorrow, I think, covering James Webster's 2008 away shirt. So again, some little bits of detailing that I'll discuss in that one. So yeah, it's just trying to keep the memory and the history alive of all these little different stories of things that people tell me and that I've picked up along the way. It's great to be able to share them with people. So yeah, and if anybody ever wants to know anything, feel free just to drop me a message. I've had a few different questions this week asking what to most people might just be silly questions, but I do quite enjoy getting back to people. So yeah, if you want to know, just drop us a message.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And speaking of club's heritage, the last heritage cast I recorded was with John 𝗗𝗏, quite apt with us playing Castleford on Friday, of course. Missed the kick in the '86 Challenge Cup final. Fantastic listen, as are all the heritage cast. So if you want to listen to that, make sure you go to you can listen to it, watch it on YouTube, or you can listen to it on podcast. It's available, and it is a really good listen. We're working on for our 20th Heritage Cast. We're working on something very special, so hopefully we'll get some news on that soon. But you guys, thank you for joining us again. It's been another bumper-packed episode of the Red Robin Podcast Weekly. I always aim to do these in about an hour, and they always overrun because people have got a lot to say, and it's great to get people's opinions. So thank you to everyone who's watched this evening. Thank you to everybody who's listening on the Red Robin Podcast Weekly. It's great to have you on board. Of course, Rovers have got a huge game on Friday night when we look to be making it through to the Challenge Cup semi-final. Let's all get behind the boys and cheer them on to victory. This is, of course, powered by 360 Chartered Accountants and Budget Tyres Auto Centre. I'm Chris Johnson. You've been listening to Dan Crowther and Mikey Carter, and of course Roy from Cast Tigers Stats. Live, love, laugh and be happy.